So yeah, we're in this unprecedented time in our history where, you know, we're faced with a new problem that is, you know, uncharted territory, and, you know, it's creating a lot of suffering and loneliness, you know, from, you know, suffering from loneliness, essentially, for millions of people, you know, because, you know, we sort of fall into these, into the cracks of convenience, you know, with the internet, entertainment, social media, you know, texting, and not really, you know, sort of being present with actual relationships, you know, not so much present with the actual people that are more in our environment. And yeah, it's like there's no map for, you know, how do we get ourselves out of this place. Because, you know, some of the types of feelings that are, you know, created by this situation are very uncomfortable for most people to really look at, to really make a change in the right, you know, in the direction that would be better for them emotionally, and ultimately more like what they want, so that they could have a life that is more meaningful. And it's difficult because it's not just, you know, it's not just like that as a few people are suffering from loneliness and a few people are addicted to distracting devices. It's that, you know, even if we interact with other people, a lot of, you know, what it really means to be intimate with people, we don't even know, you know, what that means. So even when we find people to interact with, it's like, you know, even if we've sort of resolved our own, sort of somewhat resolved their challenges, now we still need to help them resolve their challenges. And, you know, and our own, you know, it's like a constant, yeah, I mean, it's a lot, you know, it's a lot to be faced with a systemic problem that affects us on such an intimate level, you know, because it's not just that, like, a few people are socially awkward. It's like that we live in a culture of social awkwardness. And even when we, you know, have the people in our lives that are, you know, technically a relationship, there may, you know, the communication may not be great, the attention span may not be great, the tendency to, you know, go off and be alone together in a, you know, sort of like, you know, I'm doing my thing, you're doing your thing, I'm looking at my phone, you're looking at your phone. You know, we're not even like watching the same movie together, we're just being separate. And I mean, that's fine, like that's fun. You can do that. But but it's like if you never develop like a taste for a deeper relationship, because you don't allow it, because there's only ever you're with somebody, but it's like you're living with an acquaintance at this point. I think a lot of people they have romantic partners that they call their significant other, but it's like they don't even know each other. It's like they're acquaintances. Because they just don't, like, their internal world is like a fucking black box to each other, and it's not even a black box to to the other person. It's a fucking black box to themselves, because they don't want to like go digging in there. That's fucking scary. Like I got maybe there's demons in there. Who knows? I don't know. I don't want to look at that stuff. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it, So, I don't know. So it's like we've kind of conquered the world, and we've become the apex predator on the planet, so to speak. And we've, as a species, we've dominated everything. As individuals, we have very little, what often sometimes seems despairingly little amount of control over our environments, and less so due to the shifting tides of economic disasters. But so it's like, I don't see a lot of content out there, and perhaps it's not, I don't see a lot of people really approaching what the circumstance is from the point of view of how do we continue to exist as social people, community-oriented people, family-oriented people, relationship-oriented people, people who have, people who serve people in our lives where we're not just like trying to dig up one person to serve all these different functions, because the other problem is that we try to like find that, because it's so there's such a scarcity around relationship, we have a very narrow view of what relationship means now, and we sort of want like the one person that's going to be there for us in all the ways that we need to have a person. Suddenly like one person has to like fulfill the roles of an entire village, because if you look at like sort of more native cultures and tribal societies, these people aren't worried about finding their one true love. They like that happens naturally, and it's just one more type of relationship that they have. The romantic love, that's one thing, and then you have all the other people who support you in your life. Everyone in the village, they all serve different functions and they can be, some of the things, some of the time, but not all of the things, all of the time. And it's not one person's responsibility to be your everything all of the time. And so that, I think that's one of the hesitancies as well, that we face when we want to go forward. Is like, do we want to go forward with people in our lives, knowing that they're going to put a lot of weight on me to perform multiple functions that aren't real, it's like the reality is like I'm not going to be there all the time. I'm not going to be emotionally available all the time. I'm not going to always be up for giving whatever needs to be given all the time. And so, to preserve our sense of autonomy, it's kind of scary to get. It's kind of scary to even think about, more serious, quote unquote, relationships, because it's like, oh God, maybe I just want to be lighthearted. Maybe I can, be really intimate some of the time. Maybe I can, provide this person with comfort and love some of the time. But I can't really realistically provide it when I don't have it to give. And so, I think we instinctively know that. But we also have this ideal that has been, put into the media that, once you find your soulmate, you're set. But no, it's like, you're not gonna always wanna be in each other's hair all the time. You have different needs, and it's not reasonable to expect somebody else to be there for you emotionally and in all the other ways, to be a cook, to be the cleaner, to be the provider, to be all these things, to be the peacemaker, to be the therapist, to be the leader, to be the follower, to be the the person that is interested in what we have to hear, and also the person who is interesting to listen to, the person that is the person that we can talk up to and the person that we can talk down to, because it's like we sort of crave all these different kinds of experiences as human beings. We want to, sometimes, it's fun to be the older kid hanging around the younger kids and being like, oh, look at what I know. Look at all these things that I know. And then, you go to your parents and, they don't think that you know anything. And you just hang out with your parents, and it's fun to be the kid that's like, oh, they know way better than me, and I like to listen to, what they have to say. And so, yeah, it's like when we go for this one sort of cure-all relationship, that's puts a lot of weight on that, and then it makes us have a lot of hesitancy, I think, to it's like once we find the one, now we realize the one is kind of annoying some of the time to be around, and it's like in a larger community, that's not a problem. Once you get annoyed, you just take some time apart and allow the good feelings to come again when they come again, and then you can they don't have anyone It's not like they are lacking for other people, and you're not lacking for other people. So it's not like there's a lot of like hurt feelings of like at some point, you just sort of like need to take a break from this person and, recharge and from other, relationships, because, we need multiple mirrors to get different, vantage points of ourselves so we can know ourselves better, which is another, thing. It's like a lot of times relationships become kind of hostile and toxic because we only ever see ourselves through the lens of the other person, and we're like constantly fighting against their perception of what we are, when in reality that is only one point of view, and their point of view is not the ultimate point of view. It's important to have, it's ideal, it's better to have multiple people. It's better to have a wider range of people to draw your confidence, self-esteem, and identity from than just the one person that you're so like tightly entangled with that they can only see you as the fucking person that they have to like figure out how to coexist with when you become inconvenient and annoying to them. So yeah, that's a challenging thing, because like someone could be very harsh and they could be very right about us in one particular way. But then, we can go to like our mom and dad or our grandparents, and they could point out like, yeah, but it's okay, you have all of these, positive things about you, don't let it get to you. Yes, yeah, you have some growing to do in this area, but you're wonderful in all these other ways, and we love you. And you just have the different people who are, have a different level of respect for you and a different angle that they view you from, and they're not looking at you from like this overly dependent thing that is like, like a codependent survival relationship where like you're suddenly like eclipsing each other's existence because you don't really have a good enough amount of reference points to really like give you a sense of self. So your sense of self is so attached to this other person's emotions and point of view that you can't really, see yourself anymore. And you just feel whatever, it's like you feel both like the other person's resentment and you feel your own like lack of self-esteem because you just don't, you feel like maybe they're not right about all these things about you, but it seems like, in the absence of anyone else like giving us that different point of view, it's like tempting to believe everything that we hear from the people that we're really, close to, if there's no one else around. And if both people are not really vigilant about this and willing to really look at themselves and not think of the other person as the problem solver for their loneliness issue and their sense of survival, if they are able to continue to respect, that this is another human being. I enjoy having this human being, but my survival and everything about me is not dependent on them. I am okay without them because that is the kindest way to be around them, because it's a heavy burden to carry somebody else's will to live and somebody else's sense of how they view themselves and somebody else's emotional state. When we make someone else responsible for all that, or we feel held responsible for all that, we lose our sense of, well, am I even, like, why are we even together? It's like we just hate each other now, and because we feel so dependent, we don't even know if we really like each other. We're just together because we're afraid to be alone, and we wanted this to be the cure-all relationship that was going to solve our loneliness issue, but now I just have this person around who I can't really think straight about myself, and I just feel like I would rather, find some kind of escape hatch, because I'm so lost in the forest that I can't even, I don't even know where the fuck I am now. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I am. I just feel like a piece of shit, So, yeah, I think that's, one of the, so we're in this time where there's no real map for, how do we solve this problem? And I think, it begins with just being, one, accepting that it is where we find ourselves, and two, being as honest as we can and about ourselves, about others, about the world, but mostly about ourselves, what it is that we are, what is it that we really want, what are the anxieties that come up in certain situations, what are they really telling us? Are we running away from something, or are we running to something? That's a line that is used in, to love is to be happy with. It's a book that I've read recently. Really good book. Highly recommend it. I think the author is Barry Neil Kaufman. Yeah, just a brilliant man. He's one of the good ones who really understands. He really uncomplicates. What it is that to just look at. Can you just be okay with what you want, and what are the beliefs that you have about it, and why is it that we think that, why is it that we believe that, so yeah, he calls it the option process. So anyhow, that book resonated with me. But yeah, let's see, where was I going with this? Trying to remember. Okay, yeah, now I remember. Are we running away from something, or are we running to something? So, a lot of times the things that we want are not really the things that we want. We say that we want them, but we're using them to run away from something else that we don't want. And so then we end up with something that is like a temporary place of hiding that is unsatisfying, because you're not going toward the thing that we're not going toward what we want. We've just ran away from what we didn't want. So anyhow, yeah. So yeah, my point is, yeah, we're in a new world. We've kind of conquered the planet, but now we have the final frontier is kind of like, or the next frontier. I don't know if it'll be the final one, but the next great place that we really want to look and explore is human relationships, and how do we because in the past we could have relationships. Relationships happened automatically because there was no convenience. So we needed other people. We literally needed other people. Now we don't need other people, but we still want other people. So we're having to figure out how to really consciously create healthy social environments without actually, the necessity of having people, but just because we want it and because it makes life worth living in, a sort of a, from the desire of our heart, from the desire of our spirit. It makes our spirit happy to have good families, good communities, good friends, good lovers, These are things that we still want, but now we're in an age where we need to be very mindful, self-aware, and conscious about how we proceed and how to create these things. And, I think that is the big thing that we need to have a conversation with, as not just, individuals who are suffering with loneliness, but, those of us who are, we need to talk about it, because we might be the squeaky wheels who get the ball rolling, but, really as a culture, ultimately, what I want for people is not just that my loneliness problem gets solved. I want a world in which there is a path for people to have happier communities, have happier relationships, be less scarcity oriented with, the matters of the heart and the instinct to connect, So, it's like sometimes I feel like I'm experiencing what the world is experiencing, and I sort of feel like it's sort of my responsibility to figure out how to be one of these pioneers who goes off on this adventure and becomes, has the discoveries, makes the discoveries, discovers the new place, like Columbus, or some, Magellan or something, or Lewis and Clark. I feel like if I had been born, like in the 1700s or the 1800s, I would have been like one of those guys who's just out there on the frontier, figuring out, having my adventure, being a explorer, and that thing, because that's what I kind of am. I'm an explorer, and since there's no place really, not that many uncharted territories on the planet, the place that I can explore is, human psychology and, relationships. And I think that is sort of like the realm that is ripe to be, to become more conscious of, and to find a better map for how do we achieve these things and make a better world that has more of an on-ramp for people who, want to re-engage with something, but when they re-engage, they realize there's nothing, there's no on-ramp. So I want to figure out how do we create some on-ramps, and it ultimately, it does sometimes mean we have to see things that we weren't allowing ourselves to see before, and we need sometimes to find the on-ramps that are already there, that are hiding in plain sight. There's a lot of things that seem obvious once they've been discovered, but they're not, they're sort of a cult until, it's more broadly, there's a more broad awareness on it. So, this is I think that is one of the things that I've been thinking about, because, it just, it's not just enough, I think. It's I just want to have my family unit and my community and my peaceful life. But at the same time, I want that for everyone else too, And whatever I can do on my journey to just be sort of honest and express, I think is sort of like, the best way forward for me personally on, what I'm trying to achieve and how I'm trying to grow as a human being. So anyhow, it feels good to, allow some air to go through my lungs and to exercise the muscles in my throat and to build the circuitry in my brain by doing this. And, I'll leave it here. Have a good one.